Hello, everybody, and welcome in to the Maize and Blue Reviews. Good afternoon, Michigan football. I'm Dennis Fithian, joined by Jim Scarcelli. It's great to see Scar on this Wednesday. Scar, what's going on? How you doing?
Cultural momentum. That's what's happening. That's the phrase. I never heard that phrase. Coach Harbaugh used it, but it's happening in basketball. It's a great day to be a Wolverine, man. Juwan picked up the big kid from Tennessee. We got the big defensive back, 4-year starter from UMass. Cultural momentum happening in Ann Arbor.
I like the way that the Harbaugh put it, and I'd never heard that phrase before either. The way you put it, we will get to some of that you just talked about. We will also look at Michigan's game against Rutgers, which is coming up on September the 23rd. Not so far away, if you really think about it. You mentioned Jim Harbaugh and cultural difference. We'll see what else Scar thought of what the coach had to say last week down in Detroit. A lot of recruiting visits going on this month, as everyone knows. And next month, the Jim has the coach with some thoughts on hosts and what they do and all of the things that go into a recruiting visit. And we will get to Big Ten West predictions coming up straight ahead. But Scar teased it, and here it is. This is big news for Michigan, and we start on the football side. Scar, the Wolverines, Harbaugh has doubled down a couple times talking about a starter at corner, Amarian Walker, but quickly he goes to Jaden McBurrows. There's a host of other guys that would be a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 deep, but also Michigan has been pursuing corner help in the transfer portal, and this time they land that help with Josh Wallace, who earlier this morning committed to Michigan. You mentioned a 4-year starter, 2-time captain as well. What's this say to you about Michigan, about this player, about everything, how it fits in with what the Wolverines are trying to do this year?
Hey, we got 2 in a row on our finger, man. Big rings on our finger, and that's a big part of what this says. This kid could have gone anywhere. And he wants to come win a championship. Obviously the Don Brown connection would have helped. They would have, Don Brown would have said good things about Jim, and the kid can play man coverage if he played for UMass, and that position is wide open. I mean, we heard these great, Jim was singing the praises of Amarian, but listen, man, Jim uses that phrase meritocracy all the time. No one is safe. And you're competing every day, and we're going to get guys. We're going to get the best players on the field. You come to Michigan, it's a meritocracy. You're going to compete. So it says it's great that Michigan go get this kid, and I think he's going to be right in there battling for that corner opposite the All-American.
Yeah, I look at this as only good news myself. Like, you can't have enough competition, and it is a spot, as you mentioned, that is wide open. So it wouldn't be a shock if you saw him in there as a starter from game one. But I think, like last year, when we can look at it like this, the non-conference schedule, I think if you're not named the starter in week one, I do think you're going to get an opportunity to get out there and show what you can do in week 1, 2, and 3. So, keep it going. Hot competition at cornerback 2, opposite of Will Johnson. It could be any of those guys, but more depth. 4-year starter, 2-time captain. Sounds like a great addition.
Yeah, he's a great attitude kid, so it's a great pickup, and we just keep rolling, man. That's all about that cultural momentum. He comes on, you come on your visit, you see the enthusiasm. Players are fired up. It's a good feeling.
Scar, Michigan did get their championship ring from this past year, and that is back-to-back. Did you get your ring on today? I mean,
I was going to break it out. Okay. We were talking about rings the last week. Maybe next week I'll break. But hey, that stuff matters. It matters big time, man. Oh, yeah. You have that stuff for life, and it matters, and it matters in recruiting, and it's a big thing. So can't say enough about it.
Yeah,
but I've said this before. Big Ten championship rings are one thing, but for me, and I don't know how other players feel. We get an M ring. It's called the M ring when you put your 4 years in, and you make it through and you graduate, you don't have to graduate, but it says you went through it, and that ring means more to me. I guess every player would have a different feeling about it, but it was just so tough to go through it. I mean, just graduating from college for anyone is tough. Graduating from college for anyone who's got to work, do three jobs, that's tough. But graduating from college at Michigan and playing a sport is tough. It's just demanding. So it's a tough thing, and I cherish my M ring more, though. Just throwing that out there.
Scar, I've heard other former players echo those exact same sentiments about that M ring.
Good.
Very cherished, but they like all that hardware.
Can't get enough rings. Got a lot of fingers. We're gonna put a third one on this year.
Can't get enough rings. I'm with you on that. And you get one, you want another one, you get another one, you want, like John Falk. When's the next one? What's the next one we're playing for? Well, basketball has been a little quiet, but not so much today as they get Olivier Nkamhoua. Now, Nkamhoua had been linked to Michigan for a long time, and they had him on campus, but then he was out of West Virginia, and it was Baylor, and for Utah for a second. And then, I don't know, yesterday or the day before, Michigan looked like they were out. That was some of the reporting that Michigan was out. And then late last night, they were back in. And now today, it is official, a commitment from Olivier Nkamhoua. What's this say to you that Juwan Howard's able to get a player where it looked like he lost him, and then they're able to get him and, get him on one of those scholarships, one of the two that they had remaining?
It's great news for Michigan and Juwan that, people are, shaking their head over Hunter. Yeah, we're all a little, wondering about that, but this is great, man. This gives Juwan some momentum. And, there's going to be a lot of competition now, guy like Williams and Cheddar. I don't know how happy they are to see more competition at their position, but this kid has played, man. He's a four-year guy. He started every game for Tennessee, who's a good team. So, 6'9" kid, and he can score, he can defend. He's he's smart. He's played a lot of basketball. So it's great, man. Great pickup for Juwan.
I agree. I rewatched it. I think I watched most of it live, the NCAA tournament game when Tennessee beat Duke. And I was really impressed with Duke, but I was really impressed with Tennessee that day. And I was most impressed with Olivier Nkamhoua. He was the star of that game. You want to feel good about what his potential is, go watch him play that tournament game against the Blue Devils. He looked awesome, and that is a tremendous pickup. He's Michigan's best player. He'll be Michigan's best player. We'll see who else they add, but as it sits right now, he is their best player. So I feel pretty good about that. I want you to answer some of the feedback, Scar. Anybody that ever has a question, you can throw it in there. Richard, going back to the corner that the Wolverines picked up from UMass, saying that OSU fans are making fun of this guy because he's coming from UMass.
Because of the Don Brown defensive scheme. I imagine that's what the mentality is. Well, that's ignorant if that's what they're laughing at. Because this kid, we run a different scheme than Don Brown. Listen, he played for Don. He can cover man. He's asked to do a ton of that. Coach Brown isn't a real man. We are a multiple defensive scheme, and he'll figure out how to play zone. He'll figure out how to do the things we ask him to do. They're crazy if they're laughing at that, because the kid's a football player, and he'll adjust and adapt to our scheme. So whatever. Good luck with that.
Well, Ohio State fans are stupid. I think we all know that. But when you live in a ne'er-do-well world, you say stupid things. And so that's not a surprise. Go and check and see where you go and find some of these players. You find them from all over the place. You find them from a group of five. That's what you do. And, when he's batting a pass away from one of your wide receivers that, you guys love so much, when Michigan's rolling you by a couple touchdowns this year and you guys are all crying and everything, we'll remember what you said about Wallace and all of that. So that's good for Ohio State fans. Ohio State fans really don't, for a long time, they had legs to stand on. Right now, they don't have any legs to stand on. So there you go, Buckeye fans.
Yeah,
Let's go.
kid's a football player, man, and he'll adjust and learn our scheme, and he'll figure it out. So,
yeah, I mean, it takes a bunch of Philistines. They don't understand what's going on. They don't even have all their teeth in their mouth. So let's go.
He's a good player. He's obviously a team guy. His teammates looked up to him, 2-time captain. So Jim likes those captains.
Go buy some more lottery tickets and chewing tobacco. Let's go. Scar, you are going to look over, Michigan, along with the other little brother, Ohio State, reside in the East, which is a powerhouse along with Penn State. But the Big Ten West is, they've added some coaches, and they look like they might be a little bit more formidable. You told me that you were going to pick the Big Ten West. So without further ado, let's pick the Big Ten West. Scar, let's start it out at the bottom. Your number 7 team in the Big Ten West.
I don't think Northwestern's I mean, they play Penn State. The big thing about these predictions, and I know being a former coach, you look at that schedule, man, who's got the Buckeyes and who's got the Wolverines. That's what you're looking at. And then who's got Indiana and who's got Rutgers on their crossovers. I mean, that's huge, huge. But before I go into this, Denny, real quick, last year, you remember old Scar picked Purdue to win the Big Ten West. And one of the big reasons I picked them was because of their crossover schedule. So, and I also said Illinois would be the most improved team. I think I was right on both of those. So if I would have put some money in, like a dummy, I didn't do it. But I just don't know what's going on in Evanston. Coach Fitzgerald, I got Northwestern as the bottom again until they prove something, because they've been normally he gets it going. Might have a bad year and gets it going the following year, but he gets Penn State in the crossover with Rutgers and Maryland. Maryland's a good team, so I got Northwestern on the bottom. I don't know what's going on there. Not a lot of faith right now.
I'll be rooting for their transfer punt returner and wide receiver, AJ Henning.
That's right. They did pick up, and they Denny, I really think Northwestern, I think they are at a disadvantage with transfers, because I think they have a real difficult time bringing kids in, maybe even more so than Michigan. So that's one of the things that makes things difficult for them. They got to be grad transfers. I think Henning already graduated. The number 6 team I have, Denny, is Purdue. And a big reason, they played Michigan and Ohio State in the crossover. Jeff Brom was an outstanding offensive coach. The guy who's the new coach was the defensive coordinator at Illinois, who's really good on defense. The guy's been around. He was at Missouri. But I don't know if they're going to get the kind of quarterback and offensive play that Jeff Brom had. He's going to have a new quarterback. But the big thing is they got those 2 tough crossovers, Michigan and Ohio State. They're number 6. My number 5 team. Go ahead. You want to comment?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind making a comment as you go through there. Ryan Walters is one of the youngest
Walters
in the country, 37 years old now. He's the new head coach at Purdue. All right, go ahead. Let's go to number 5.
And number 5 is Nebraska. I don't see the talent. They got to do a better job recruiting. You got the quarterback. I've talked about him. They scare me because of the quarterback, but he's got Michigan State, Maryland, and Michigan. So in the crossovers, I just see them as a team that they got to recruit better. Front 7 players. They're just small. They're not big, thick, strong, tough enough. He's got to get better players, bigger, better, stronger. So that's number 5. The 4th team I have is Minnesota. And the big reason, again, for them, they got Michigan and Ohio State in the crossover. I think PJ Fleck is a real good coach. If he didn't have such a the 2 tough guys in the crossover, I'd have them higher. And I said that's going to be our toughest of our first 6 games. Minnesota and PJ Fleck has that program trajectory continuing to move. It's a tough grind there, but he's the only school in the state. But I think he's getting better. But he's got the 2 tough crossovers.
Yeah, 7th year as the head coach of the Gophers after being at Western Michigan for PJ Fleck. And I'm a big fan of his hairstyle and the way he runs his program. I think that Minnesota will win the Big Ten West. So you and I are going to be different on that one. All right, let's get to the top 3 in the Big Ten.
You know, they could win. They could win their league games, but again, those 2 crossovers are going to be tough. You know, my top 3, I really had a tough time figuring them out because they got similar qualities. Their scheduling non-league is the crossover is not that tough. But I got Iowa at 3. He's only got Penn State on the road. He's got Michigan State and Rutgers. You know, you got Cade there as the quarterback and Alls, and they're you know, they're saying they're going to make some tweaks to that offensive philosophy. We'll see it. I believe they are, though. I think you're going to see them be more like the rest of the Big Ten. Maybe not so much fullback.
Wait, but, you're saying they're going to like throw the ball down the field and stuff?
Well, just doing some of the things that everybody else is doing, not so much, you know, the
forward pass. All right.
Yeah, well, they tried to throw it. They just didn't do things that gave you a lot of trouble at times. They just were, you know, some of the stuff is easy schematically to defend, but they got a good quarterback. They always play good defense, and it's tough to win there. So I got them at 3. I got Wisconsin at 2. Now they get Ohio State, but they got Indiana and Rutgers as crossovers. And he brought in some good. He brought in a good couple good transfer quarterbacks. I got them as the second team, and I got Illinois as the top team. Brett Bielema, what he did last year. He's got that big defensive lineman back. He got a quarterback that come in from Ole Miss. And Brett Bielema is just a darn good coach. He's got Penn State and Maryland and Indiana in the crossover. So that is my prediction. Which team there will be the most improved? I might say Iowa. Iowa might be the most improved, Iowa or Wisconsin, because I think you're going to see change. Well, obviously we're going to see a change with Wisconsin offensively, schematically. Well, both sides of the ball. I mean, Fickell is going to run it. They're doing different things there now than what they've done for a long time there. So, but yeah, Illinois, Brett Bielema, he's a good coach. They gave us trouble last year. He's got them playing physical. They play physical. They play smart, and you know, he had good quarterback play at Illinois last year. Is he going to hit the jackpot again with this transfer, Denny? That's kind of big for them.
Yeah, I'm not as big a fan of Bielema as you and others. Into his 3rd year here, you know, former nose guard at Iowa, Wisconsin, and Arkansas. I think he's a little bit of a fraud, but I don't think Illinois. You know, they're playing pretty good defense, but I don't see them being up there at the top. I do think that when you look at the West, Matt Rule and Luke Fickell, I mean, these are 2 of the top coaches, not just in the Big Ten, in the country. I don't know how long it's going to take them. Usually a couple of years, but I mean the Big Ten West, and you know, after this year, I don't think there is going to be a Big Ten West. I think both of those teams, you know, you put an up arrow. We already talked about Fickell there, so, and I think Pat Fitzgerald's a great coach. So a lot of great coach, a lot of good coaches, and a great coach over there.
There's not a stiff in that division. You got to recruit, you know, and who's coming up with a better scheme week in, week out, but you got to recruit, man. You know, and who can bring in transfers too. So it's tough.
You are right about that. Well, we're going to talk about another Big Ten team. We're going to take it from west to east. First, I want to tell everyone, you know, Scar had all the information about Wallace and Nkamhoua, the transfer from Tennessee to Michigan, and then UMass to Michigan on the football side. You want to know about the transfer portal, the very latest, when it happens. Well, join up with the Maize and Blue Review today by going to michigan.rivals.com. You'll know about what's going on with the transfer portal. You want to know about this big weekend and what's going on with the recruits that are coming in and what they're saying, and, you know, who's going where and what, all the latest on the Maize and Blue Review. Go there today, michigan.rivals.com, and that does get us to the Scarlet Knights, which you're going to talk about. Rutgers, who Michigan, they trailed last year in Piscataway, Scar. If you remember, I think 17-14 before they ripped off 38 unanswered in the second half and won that game going away. But what about Greg Schiano's team?
Guy's a real good coach, man. He's a good coach, and they made some mistakes there, but you're right. It was a tough game for a while. It was 2 years in a row, 2 years in Ann Arbor, 2 years ago in Ann Arbor, it was a battle. The guy, they don't have enough great players. We're out recruiting them. Okay. But they're good. They're a good team. They're a well-coached football team. You better be ready to play when you play these guys. You better have a good scheme. Michigan's coaches have a slight advantage over them because we got better players, but you better be ready to go. Anyway, what I'm seeing is they got a quarterback. They got a couple quarterbacks that can run and move, and he's not. See the difference between playing a team like Rutgers and then when we play Rutgers, we will be reluctant to run our quarterback as much as they will because we just don't want to have and this is my opinion. And I think if I'm coaching Michigan, I don't want to run JJ any more than I really have to against a team like Rutgers. Okay. I want him playing against Michigan State, Penn State, the Buckeye. I want him finishing the year. So I'm going to be reluctant to do some of the RPO stuff where he's keeping the football, potentially taking hits. But they got guys that can run at quarterback, and he's not going to care. So that's what they have is they got quarterbacks that can run. I think their offensive line coach is good. I watched their spring game just this morning because I taped it. I think they're well coached at the offensive line. They got this Kirk Soraka. He's been around. I think he was at Penn State. The guy's been around. He's a good offensive line. Their offensive line is well coached. They just don't have as many guys that could. They might have one guy on their offense that could start for Michigan. Tight ends, offensive line, the whole deal. So we got better players, but you better be ready to play against them. So what else do I have here? Their offensive line is well coached. One or two players. I think they're tough and they're good and well coached. Their defense, I looked at their defense, Danny. He was always a 4-3 guy with the tilt nose. We only saw that once a year, the things he did schematically. I watched their spring game. He's looking like he's running Michigan stuff. He's running with our look, a 3-4 look at times, a 2-4 look. So I was really it was interesting looking at that. I think maybe Greg Schiano might be changing some things schematically, defensively, but that's a game that if we are ready, secure the football, got a good scheme, a game we should win at home. It'll be after those 3 non-league games. But you better not take these guys lightly, and we sure as hell won't. But you got to play, man. They're not clowns. The coach is good. But it's a game we should win.
Yeah, I'm with you. And if I was a college football coach in football now, I would be looking at going to a 3-4 as well. And I don't think Michigan needs to look very far in terms of trying to take Rutgers lightly. Like I said, Scarlet Knights had the lead on Michigan at the half last year. And then 2 years ago, Michigan was shut out in the second half and had to hang out with a big defensive stop late against Rutgers. And U of M in that game, they ran the ball left and right with no success. They had 4 3-and-outs in the second half against the Scarlet Knights. I mean, the fans were ready to start booing. They hung on, won the game.
I remember it, man. We couldn't. That was that defensive scheme that he ran. We don't see it much, and we had a hard time moving the ball against them. Now, sometimes a coach will make a decision like that for a lot of reasons, but it'll help their off. Maybe they feel they're seeing it a lot, that kind of scheme. He likes the advantages that it gives you, like it's given Michigan. It'll help his offense because they see it now in spring and they see it in camp going against the stuff that Michigan runs. So, but it'll hurt them when they play Michigan because we'll be familiar with that kind of a defense.
All right, good stuff, Scar. Now, Jim Harbaugh made some comments last week in Detroit. You already pulled the one thing about the recruiting and what they were able to do. What else struck you about what Harbaugh had to say last week?
It was just great to hear him talk about the same things we heard. Jim is pounding that word team, the team. Same thing we heard every day. So he's pounding that. He talked about the momentum. Denny, one thing I ain't buying, I'm not buying that Michigan's going to throw the ball more this year. I'm not buying it. I think it sounds good but I think when we get into a tough game, like against somebody and we're able to move the ball, if we're able to move the football against Rutgers and we got them 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, we're running the ball. Okay. We're not, I just see our statistics playing out very similar to what we've been the last 2 years. If we're a 60% run team, I know that sounds good. It looks good up there on the screen. You got it there, and it sounds good because it makes the opponent think you're going to throw it and run it more. But I think when push comes to shove and you're the guy making that call to make a first down, we're going to run behind Keegan. We're going to run behind our tight ends, and we're going to run our best stuff. And be what we are. It's easy to say that stuff. But when if you're having confidence moving the football, running it, why the hell would you want to throw it more than you have to? Go ahead. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that it's interesting to think about because Michigan, it's their identity. Talking about running the football, it's been great for them these last 2 years. Look at the success they've had. They didn't just beat Ohio State. They dominated them. They made it to the college football semifinals in 2 years. But I think if you take a step back and you say, hey, how do you even take the next step? It's improving on offense, and that is using the entire field and being able to have as well as a dominant run game, have an explosive passing game. And I think you saw some of the hints. Michigan tried to have a downfield passing game in the Big Ten season, and they weren't successful. J.J. McCarthy and the wide receivers just weren't on the same page. It didn't click until the Ohio State game. Then they started hitting against Purdue. The downfield passing game was there, and then it was there along with some picks against TCU. But I think that if you're thinking, hey, we want to be able to do it all, and we want to win a national championship, I think, working on that and being able to be as explosive in the passing game, as well as being physical and being able to dominate in the run game, that seems to be the cherry on top for me. And you can feel like this team might be able to be a national championship contender.
Yeah, Danny, I know this as a coach. A lot of times the team will have certain stats, whatever our stats are against Rutgers or Eastern Carolina, whatever, and it'll be different when you play Penn State and when you play Ohio State. Our stats will be different because it'll be tougher to run the football. So that's why when you're coaching, you look at somebody's stats, you're like, that's going to change against you. You know what I mean? We'll probably throw the ball more. It might be 50-50 against a team like Penn State or against Ohio State because we're going to probably have to. And we'll work on, and we'll try to get as much work as we can. And Jim is right. He talked about it being harder to defend. Look, if I'm defending Michigan and they're 50-50 run pass and they're tough to defend in both areas, that is tough to defend. He also talked about, every eligible receiver on the field being a potential target. We don't have Honigford over here. You know what I mean? As a guy who's just blocking. Now we got every tight end is a target. Every receiver is a target. So he talked about that. And those are things that make you more difficult to defend. So I liked hearing that. It was he talked about cultural momentum, man. And that was that term that and that's what's happening. You see it in the weight room, you see it, and there's so much energy, so much enthusiasm. Guys want to come. There's confidence. There's they're not fat and happy. There's nobody down there fat and happy. And there's a statement: "Fate is in our hands." Harbaugh says, "I firmly believe we have the license and ability to do it." So, that was really all I had on that on what he said there, Danny.
Well, I liked it. I wanted to ask you about recruiting. Is what you have right now is that you see the official visits that took place last week and then what the guys say afterwards and everything that's going on. And then they'll have another one coming up this weekend, big recruiting weekend with some big time names. Scar, you have been on both sides of this. You've been the player that came in there. You've been the player then that went through and then took other players through Ann Arbor, and then as a coach, that kind of stuff, sending players over there to to go through all that. Tell me a little bit about the official visits and what's key when you get the guy on
I
campus.
think something that is not mentioned and talked about enough, and again, this is just like anybody when they make a decision about something. What's more important? Your relationship with your position coach, your relationship with the coordinator, your relationship with the head coach, the recruiting coordinator, the distance from your house, what kind of game they play, what's their philosophy, all these things you think about and you evaluate. But something that I think is important. I remember as a player, it was important to me. The player host who shows you around on your recruiting visit. I think that's important because that's the guy you really sit down and talk with and really get a feel. It's not a coach talking, man. This is a guy who's maybe, a couple years older than you, and he's talking about, and you're going around the campus with them and spending time with them and getting a feel for, the program from a player standpoint. Jim Herman, the linebacker, he was my host on my visit. And I clicked with him, man. I just felt a real good, and just hearing him talk about the program. He ended up being a good player and a great coach at Michigan. But I think that is a part of an official visit. And again, I'd like to hear other former players talk about how they would prioritize it. But in my opinion, who they match up with a player on an official visit is important. I think it's a hell of a lot more important than people talking about the role of the recruiting coordinator. I think that's overrated. They're just kind of like secretaries as far as I'm concerned. But I was a guy that showed a lot of guys around on visits. Some of my guys came. I remember showing Spielman around, spent time with Spielman on his recruiting visit. Almost got him to come, but it matters. And, because I think about some of the other some guys want to go out and party. And if you're not a party guy,
yeah,
and you feel that's the tone of that, you might that ain't for me. Or some guys, the coaches better do a good job matching up that host with that kid who's coming up. They better try to get the personalities right and what they think, what that kid, get that right. You don't want to put a guy who just wants to go to the library with the kid who might be a little, more of a see the nightlife kind of kid. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Hey, can you be both? You want to see the library?
That's what I mean.
Yeah. Let's go check out where the girls are at.
You got to get that happy, that happy balance there, Denny. But all I'm saying is, I think that's important. I wish we could get it. I wish the university would give us who was showing the guys around on their visits. We can't get that information, but I think it's vitally important. I just wanted to mention that. And it's a hot time of year now. We talked about it. June, July is important, and you got to be good here now, man, because this is when you guys are showing them around and showing them the campus.
Scar, did they take you over to the big house when you were visiting, and did you run down the tunnel or anything like that? Did they put your name up on the scoreboard?
No, I was winter when I was up there, and no, they didn't. I've been to games, but I just went around with Jim Herman, and we went around campus. We found a little party to go to, and got where all the other players were hanging out, and that's where you can really, coaches can talk all they want about the program or about whatever it is they're selling, but when you're with those players, and then you just it's you and the players, and you say, do I feel comfortable here? Do I want to play with these guys? Because I went to Miami, I went to Colorado, I went to Michigan State, and Illinois and Wisconsin, and some of those places I just didn't feel the vibe with the players like I did, at other places. I felt real comfortable at Michigan, and I just think that whole deal, that visit, when it's you and the players, and it's no assistant coaches and coordinators and recruiting guys in your ear, adult men, they just plug that tape recording in, and just go to work on recruiting you. You know what I mean? But when you're with the players, it's different.
Well, it's great news for Michigan, and it worked out on both sides, and that's what you like for any young man, where it works out for Michigan and then it works out for the kid, and in your case now, Michigan man. So it worked out well. Scar, let's go back to the beginning and tell everybody again our thoughts on the breaking news, and that is that earlier today, Michigan picked up a cornerback in the transfer portal. Josh Wallace commits to Michigan, a 4-year starter, 2-time captain at UMass. If you look at Michigan's offense and defense, and they're too deep, there was one spot that had a question mark next to it, and that was the corner opposite of Will Johnson. There are at least 4 guys that you could name that were in the running for that spot. Now you add another one in Wallace. This seems to be, how could it not be good news for Michigan? I guess you could say I didn't like any of the guys that were there. I don't look at it like that. I look at it like competition, and a chance for all those guys are going to get a chance. And you got another guy there, certainly with some experience. That who knows how big of a.
But Denny, I think it does say something about what they feel they have at that position. I disagree with you a little bit there, because there's other guys that were in the portal at different positions that they could have probably used one of these last scholarships on. And they chose corner for a reason. I think maybe there's some doubts there, or they feel this kid can be a step up in some ways as a cover guy, as a tackler. I'm not in their staff room, but I think it says something that they went out and got a corner. They didn't get a linebacker. We got a lot of linebackers. They didn't get a defensive lineman. They didn't get another tight end. They went out and got a corner. So that says something about what we have at that position, in my opinion. So do I think this kid starts? I haven't looked at film of this kid. And there's going to be a hell of a competition there. Amarian is a hell of an athlete. He just hasn't played enough, and we saw McBurrow do some good things. Big, tall, lanky kid, and they're going to battle it out, man. You better have some good scrimmages early on. And like you said, Danny, this thing might not be decided until till the Rutgers game, after you go through those 3 non-league games. So this gives us, it gives us 4 good players there at corner. If this kid, and McBurrow and the All-American, and so it just gives us great depth is what you want to keep developing. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and I think Miles Pollard is a dark horse. He looked good both of the. He looks like a good corner. I wouldn't be surprised to see him in the mix as a dark horse. Remember the name. And getting back to basketball, which was making big news today, as well as they are able to hit the transfer portal, and they are able to get their man, the former Tennessee Vol, Olivier Nkamhoua. And Nkamhoua, he's Michigan's best player right now. The way I look at it, I watched him play against Duke in the NCAA tournament. He was awesome in that game. He is somebody you can look, he'll shoot threes, but for me, he's a back to the basket. Or throw it to him down low. He's a post player. He can be back to the basket, but he wants the ball down low. He can face you up and take you off. He's faster than bigger guys that he can post down low, and then he can also turn up and face guys and take them with that ability to get by him. This is a great move, a great addition for Juwan Howard. And what it really says for the basketball team here is, if you follow recruiting like most of you do, and the transfer portal, again, like most of you do, Michigan has been getting shut out on the basketball side. And a lot of people lament the admissions when it comes to grad students, when it comes to just transfer students. Michigan, it seems, has a tougher policy than other schools. Like, Terrence Shannon, who ended up going to Illinois last year, if, he didn't have to take extra classes, or if his credits would have transferred, Michigan would have had a great shot at getting Terrence Shannon. That didn't happen. It's kind of the same thing with Caleb Love. However that ended up working out. If he was going to be a grad transfer, it was going to work, and then it didn't. So, that was an admissions thing. So, and then we know following name, image, and likeness, we have talked about it for 2 years, Scar. Michigan is not getting involved in the let's show you the money kind of thing. It's transformational. Well, when guys are talking about being in the transfer portal, the other schools are showing them the money. The top recruits. I think Michigan could have got Collier that ended up going to USC. I think he liked Juwan Howard. He liked Ann Arbor. I think he would have been with the Maize and Blue, except when he went out to USC, they were like, hey, here's 6 figures before you even, shoot a basket for us. He might have liked Michigan and everything that they stood for and the academics and everything else.
Danny, though, I'll tell you, man, I was like thinking like you, a year ago at this time, year and a half ago at this time. But when we can go to Nebraska and get that freshman Hausman, we can go to Coastal Carolina and get Isaiah Stewart. These are young guys, and they obviously were able to get them in. I don't think the initial thought was that you come to Michigan as a young guy, you lose a bunch of your credits. And if we're doing it in football, they got the same standards. So I don't know. Now the money thing, that's a whole nother deal that I don't have the answers to. I don't know what we're presenting these guys with, but
like you mentioned, Hausman as a freshman with the credits, and once you get a little bit, wherever whatever school you're at, if you're a junior and haven't yet transferred, that's a lot more credits that won't transfer. I think that might be the sticking point.
It could be, yeah.
I think, I don't know, like everybody, has their idea and what exactly it is. I also think that Michigan has crossed the Rubicon when it comes to name, image, and likeness. You do not get Olivier Nkamhoua if you are not Michigan and you are not saying, this is the kind of money that we have for you. Now, that is different than what Jim Harbaugh said about transformational and transactional. That is not the hill that Michigan has been up on, and they are dying on, saying, we are not giving you any money. This is not happening. We are doing everything by the rules. Nobody else is doing it by the rules, and I think this shows you that Michigan has gone ahead and walked across the Rubicon, and now they're a player, and I think that's good. If they want to be a player in basketball and be able to get top recruits, and if they want to get top transfers, they got to show them the money. And they were going the route up until yesterday where, yeah, come on in and down the line, even though Hunter said you're not getting anything, even if you're a good player. Michigan decided that was such bad PR that they needed to do something, and they did it. And that's how they got this Nkamhoua. I think this is a big moment for Michigan basketball and football, because I think Michigan selectively is showing guys the money.
Hey, we don't know. I don't know the truth, Danny, there, but I'm a happy guy. We got him. A couple other thoughts real quick. The SEC, only 8 games. They're only going to play 8 games. The Big Ten's playing 9. The ACC is playing 9. SEC, 8 league games. That's terrible as far as I'm concerned. You know how big a factor that is? They got 4 lamb chops. They might get 1 tough non-league game. Now they got, anyway, that bugs me. Any thoughts on that? That's the way they're going in the future. 8 SEC league games, Big Ten's playing 9.
Well, what it does is stupid people have a hard time staying up with this situation, and we'll see it at some point this year. We saw it last year. Like, I'm not making excuses for Michigan's non-conference schedule. It was a super soft edition. It's super soft this year. But if you take the 3 easiest games for the SEC teams, they're usually pretty similar to Michigan. Easy game, Carolina, UNLV, BG. But they take the 4th game, and they'll play a tougher team. And they say, hey, look, we're playing a tougher team. It's like, yeah, you dummy. But the 3 easiest ones are a lot like the Big Ten. And it works, though. They do it, and there's a bunch of people. I get fans. I get like an Ohio State fan. I mean, there's a bunch of Philistines and, but you think maybe an Alabama or a Georgia fan. But the media, which is supposed to take, you're supposed to be able to examine things and give people, a fair outlook on things. And, half of the media are out there like, oh, Michigan, it really sucks that they don't play anybody. And then they don't look at the SEC teams that are doing a lot of the same thing.
Well, we're looking at it. And the lamb chops are over after this year. Michigan's got 1 tough one every year. Texas, Oklahoma, Washington. So the lamb chops are over for Michigan. Another thing I saw, Denny, kid named Boo Carter, big running back out of Tennessee, highly recruited kid. Michigan's trying to get him. He's going to announce his commitment at Jay-Z's club in downtown Manhattan. Any thoughts on that? I thought that was interesting, something different. So I just wonder what the role with NIL and, with what's going on there. Maybe some of our listeners could inform me. Why does a kid make it his announcement at Jay-Z's club, kids from Tennessee in downtown New York, Manhattan?
It's all about the Benjamins. He's like, you can go in and, Jay-Z is an agent along with being an entertainer and everything else right now. You can take money. You can have an agent. You can go down to the club and, you can roll it out like that. The bigger, the better. I mean, that's what's going on right now. I haven't been to Jay-Z's club, but back in the day, actually when the Pistons were playing in Game 5 of the 2005 NBA Finals, I went to the ESPN club. I think they closed that, but that was right in downtown Manhattan. That was one of the best times I ever had. I love it, man. Now, hey, hopefully
you were down there making it rain. Big D was down there.
Big D was trying to get a table, and then Robert Horry hit this big shot. We left sad, but yeah, I was making it rain all right with the club. But yeah, no, it's pretty cool. Hopefully, Boo Carter, is not making this sign for Tennessee, and he's doing. I'm not very good. Is that the Michigan right there, close to it?
Hey, Dan, let me just also follow up on the statement about Michigan wanting to be 50-50 run pass. The stuff that gives me problems as a coach, the stuff that I just was loving against a team like Penn State. And I saw this at the practice I went to. Of course, I'm not going to say nothing about it. The stuff I like to see that I worked on in the offseason is more shifting, more motions, more crazy formations, different formations where you run your stuff. That's the stuff that I like seeing. I think we're going to see more and more of it from Michigan this year. Those are the things that give – obviously, you want to be balanced. But the multiple formations and shifting and adjustments and 6 offensive linemen and 4 tight ends and that's the stuff that drives defensive coordinators crazy. That's the stuff how we hammered Penn State last year. Manny Diaz was lost, confused. So we're going to see more of that I don't think Jim is talking about is the stuff that I like seeing that gives people problems.
Scar, I like you when you're talking about football. You get that little lean in your eye and you get fired up and you're ready to go. And,
Danny, listen, I was a guy as a former coach. I would look at teams that give me, you look at the film. That's what you're doing. You look at you got your 9 games and, 3 or 4 of them, you're going to kick their butt. You ain't worried about them. You got a good system, a good scheme. You know what you're going to do against. But there's a couple games on there where you had trouble against certain things they were doing. And you got to figure out a way to adapt and adjust and say, how can I stop this play? How can I stop these things they're doing? And, and that's what you work on. And you, how can I give them more trouble? How can I force them, put them in a bad predicament based on how they defend us or what they're doing against me on offense? That's the stuff that you work on in the off season that a lot of people don't understand.
And so you're telling me that if you have one of the best offensive lines, if not the best offensive line in the country, and you have maybe not just one, but maybe 2 of the top backs in all of college football, that you want to give them the ball and run it?
Yeah, but you still listen. We're going to have our basic fundamental stuff, fundamental formations, and do our bait. But we still have to have shifts, motions, conflicts. You still have. I don't care how big and strong your offensive line are, Danny. You still got to give them help by putting that defensive player in conflict. If I don't give a, I don't care how good them guys are. If I know what the hell you're running and you're not making me honor different schemes, different, bootleg or different, Statue of Liberty. If I don't ever have to worry about that stuff, it's easier to defend you. That's a beautiful picture right there, man. 2 big rings right there.
That is. That's Zach Zinter's hand on it up there. Give the close-up of the rings. It's nice. Got a nice ring to it. Scar, great job, as always. Can't wait till next week when we talk with you again. Who knows who you'll be talking about? We'll find out during the week, and maybe we'll be talking about more additions to this Michigan football team in the future. Have a great day and great rest of the week.
All right, Denny, go blue.
See you later. There he is. Thanks for watching, everybody. Give us that 5-star rating when you're listening on the podcast and that thumbs